Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Tier 2 Talk, the Australia Championship. Kim Mechanic here with you once again for a very, very big episode here at Tier 2. Hope you all have been well. Hope you have all been staying healthy, enjoying the summer weather. If you're experiencing it like us in Sydney at the moment, or if Melbourne we saw on the weekend was very doom and gloom on the Saturday. So hopefully the sun is shining no matter where you are. Hope you all are good. As I already said, a very big episode. We have a lot to get through. It's the final round of the group stages, and there is so much more football to be decided in this one. Let's just run through what we have in store for you. So first, we are happy to announce we have reached 100 followers on Spotify, and I just want to say a big thank you to everyone who has followed on the Spotify for being a part of this journey. When I started this journey about 10 months ago, it was just a little project for me to talk football and just to get it out of my brain. And now that people are actually listening and wanting to hear what I have to say, I'm still blown away that you guys still do that. But we're getting, I used to have 4 listens per episode. Now we're getting over 100 consistently. So I want to say thank you to everyone that listens, that has shown support, has shown love over the last months. And so during the Australia Championship, it means a lot to me just to see Tier 2 Talk grow to what it has been. Instagram, Twitter, we've always had that success and that acknowledgement there, but Spotify was always the one that you can't really push like Instagram or Twitter. It was always one that you have to earn, and I'm glad to say that you guys have shown that I've earned your trust, and I hope to continue to do that. So I want to say thank you very much. We do have a giveaway to do in just a little bit. I'll announce how you guys can win that and what you are winning, how to enter. I promised you that last week. So after we go through our kind of episode outline, we'll let you know what you have to do to be a part of that giveaway. So I just want to say thank you very much again, and let's get into this big episode. As you've probably already seen, the episode's title is Win and You're In. And we'll be saying that a lot throughout this episode because that is the state of play for at least 10 clubs going to this final group stage round. The Australia Championship has delivered once again. You can't really write these scripts when you set out like this. Set the grounds, you can set the time, set the fixtures, but at the end of the day, it's the football that does the talking, and the football has done just that. And it's going to be a great episode going through who can qualify, who will be playing who, where they could be playing. We got some breaking news about where the quarterfinals will be and how they've been decided. But very excited to get into that. We also have not one, but 2 special guests joining us for this week's episode. Both clubs that are joining us this week are brand new to the pod. They haven't joined us before. They're both on a similar storyline. They're both on the outside looking in. They're both sitting outside that top 2 in their respective groups, and they'll be in with a chance to fight their way out in the final day of the group stage. So our first guest, which we're on in just a matter of moments now, is Wollongong's Wolves' Alex Masciovecchio. He's in here where we'll talk about their impressive performance against Heidelberg, owning a draw down in Victoria last weekend, and the uphill battle they have this weekend against in-state rivals and long historic rivals Marconi. And then the second interview we have, which is about that halfway spot of the episode, is Canberra Croatia's Daniel Colbertaldo, as Canberra Croatia still remains in the hunt to get out of Group C in a huge final round. So hope you guys are excited for that. If you are listening and you're fans of those clubs, please share it around with your fellow friends, families, other supporters. That's how we grow these things. I love getting different stories and learning about different clubs on here. I hope you guys enjoyed getting to know Moreton City Excelsior and Joe Scott last week. That episode did very well. And all the guests we've had on, learning about different club stories from all across the country has been one of the joys of Tier 2. And we've got 2 more clubs on here today. And we'll just keep doing these things. And I hope you guys are excited for those interviews. On top of everything I've said already, we still have what we normally do every week. We have new power rankings. We have 2 more teams qualify for the quarterfinals. We explain how the remaining 10 teams can possibly play in the quarterfinals and what needs to happen. And of course, our normal match reviews and previews as well. And as I mentioned as well, we have some not breaking news, but news that I think is very useful going to this final weekend about the quarterfinal matchups that I haven't seen break anywhere. Like, I found it later on after I've been told, but no one it's not pointed out to you. I learned it over the weekend and I've got it verified, and I'll explain that to you about when we start our week 6 preview surrounding that news there. So stick around for that as well. Now, like I said, there is a giveaway this week to celebrate 100 followers on Spotify. We're giving out 2 tickets to any Australia Championship quarterfinal game of your choosing. So we are running it for the whole week. If you're listening to this episode, that is the only place you get to know about how to enter this giveaway. It's not going on the Instagrams. It's not going on Twitter or anything like that. It is purely for those who listen to Spotify as a reward for you guys for trusting me and listening to the podcast every week. So, how to enter this giveaway? To enter, you need to send me a message. And by me, I mean the Tier 2 Talk socials. That's Tier 2 Talk _TAC on both Instagram and Twitter. Either or, you don't have to send on both. You just have to send on one. You need to send me a screenshot that shows that you are following on Spotify, that you're following the podcast. Plus, you need to make sure you're following me on that social platform that you send through the screenshots. So follow on Spotify and follow on either Instagram or Twitter. Send me a photo of that, and you will be in the running for those 2 tickets to the Australia Championship quarterfinal. Now, that's any game you're choosing. I'm not telling you it needs to be this game or that game. You tell me what game, and I'll get you the tickets for those games there. It will be running till next week. So in this time next week, in next week's podcast, that's when I'll announce the winners. And then from there, we'll sort out the tickets and everything like that. So make sure you're entering. Plus, if you share this episode on your socials and tag us, you'll get an additional entry into that giveaway there. So, last little recap. Send me a message on either Instagram or Twitter that shows you are following the podcast on Spotify. Make sure you're following also on Twitter or Instagram, whatever account you're sending it from, and you'll be in the running. If you want a second chance of going in the running, make sure you share this episode on either, say, your Instagram stories or your Twitter feed and tag us, and you'll get that additional entry there. So good luck to everyone. Thank you again, and I can't wait to see who wins this giveaway, our first proper giveaway we've ever done here. So we now move into the thoughts of last weekend. It was the penultimate round of the group stages, round 5, and it was a quieter weekend of football, just had the 2 games. Weird to have no games on the Sunday. Usually I'm out and about, but I got to Sunday and I enjoyed the day of rest. Just got to watch the games on SBS, watch concurrently, watch all the different games and how they played out. So very different. Started on the Friday night at Apia versus Sydney United. Decent game there. Wasn't anything to rave home about. Apia gained the result there. And then the Saturday was probably the game of the round between Sydney Olympic and Moreton City Excelsior. Fantastic finish there. We'll get into all that breakdown over the next few minutes or so. So in terms of going into weekend awards, the best crowd, I'm actually going to give to the Moreton City Excelsior travelling fans that came to Jubilee Stadium. They were quiet for the most part, their team being 3-1 down for majority of the game. But in those final 10 minutes or so, they got loud, they started their chants. And what was really funny to see was when they scored that third goal, they gave it to the Sydney Olympic fans. They were up, they were shouting at the Olympic fans, giving it proper, that rivalry feel. Even though they've only played 2 games previously against each other, it already felt like a rivalry game and where those points were vital for that. And they were for the group stages, but it's funny to see you had to have security stand in between the tunnels as they were both giving it to each other. So big props to them, and it was a big turn up from the Moreton City faithful. The best food, and I think after last week's episode where I barracked Sydney Olympic for not having Greek food, they done me dirty and had Greek food this week. So they're obviously listening to the podcast. Thank you, Sydney Olympic. But they did have Greek food this week after last week's debacle. So they're getting the best food this week. Best ground is Jubilee Stadium as well. We continue with the Sydney Olympic Awards. That field at Jubilee Stadium should be, and as it is high quality grass. Like, it looks like a carpet. It's a fantastic field to play on and just even walk across as well. The best team I saw, we're going to keep going on with Sydney Olympic. I thought for, 80 minutes of that game, they were very dominant over Moreton City Excelsior and looked like they were going to take all 3 points. Now we'll get into what happened in those final 10 minutes later on. But I thought they showed their class. It was probably one of their better games in the championship, barring the result. And obviously, we continue on with the trend, and the best game of the week was Sydney Olympic versus Moreton City Excelsior. So clean sweep for the Sydney Olympic and Moreton City Excelsior game there as well. Next bit we'll go into is the team of the week for round 5. I did my weekly write-up again for the Australia Championship. You can find that article on the Australia Championship website or on their Twitter, talking about the 11 plays selected by our broadcast commentators for this week. It was a new formation. It was a 5-4-1 in this team of the week. And for the team of the week for round 5 in goal, she had Sebastian Ahrens from Canberra, Croatia. Jordan Lampard featured again for South Melbourne. Anton Milinaric from Marconi Stallions. Brendan Kelly, Jack Pierrick Hullins from Canberra, Croatia, and Jackson Walls from Metro Stars make up that back 5 lineup. In midfield, Seiya Kambayashi from West Apia, Christian Shatira from Metro Stars, Yatayo Towns from Avondale, and Joe Scott of Moreton City Excelsior is your midfield 4. And the lone striker is from Sydney Olympic and Glory Amanda. So that's your Week 5 team of the week for the Australia Championship. Like I said, you can read all about why they got in that team on the Australia Championship website. And now, since it is a very big episode and a very special episode, we will get into our first interview before we head into our round 5 review. We will talk to Wollongong's Alex Masciovecchio about his side's performance against Heidelberg, like I said, but then also and how they return home this weekend against a familiar foe in Marconi Stallions, but needing something exponential to get out of Group B there. This week, we're joined by Wollongong Wolves attacker Alex Masciovecchio. Alex, thank you for joining on, and how are you doing today?
Not a problem. Thank you for having me. I'm doing great. I'm ready for some questions.
Yeah, and let's start with your team's impressive result down in Victoria. You guys went away to Heidelberg last weekend, got a 2-2 draw. With your backs up against the wall, against one of the toughest teams in the tournament. You need a result. You got a result, and you managed to keep yourselves alive coming into this final weekend of the championship. How were you guys able to pull that result off in such a challenging environment?
Look, I think it was a game of two halves, sorry. In the first half, we didn't come out of the gate starting as strong as we would have liked to. And it'd be wrong to say that, potentially we could have got into the shed at halftime 3 goals down or something like that. Even though we scored the early goal, my God, myself, it could have been 3-1, 4-1 at halftime to them. So we did get lucky in that, but that's part of football. You got to take the chances. And then I think we kind of flipped the game in the second half. We came out the way we should have come out the first. We brought it to them, and I think that then in the second half, we definitely had more control of the game. They had some other chances. We had multiple chances, but it was tough. It's a tough place to go to. I mean, they've had a fantastic year. You can't take anything away from them. They've had a fantastic NPL run. I don't think they came first, but they did end up winning the grand final.
Yeah.
Obviously, the Australia Cup run that they went on was fantastic, and even though you're not part of the club, you're an NPL player yourself, so you've just got to applaud them in that sense. It's always good to see another NPL club do well, especially when they're versing. I think they versed 3 A-League sides on their way to the final.
Yeah, they did.
And not having conceded until the final against an A-League side. So, they had an impressive season, and so far they're also having a good championship start. So we knew it was going to be a tough place to go to, but like I said, it was definitely a game of 2 halves. They came out strong in the first half. We came out fighting back in the second, and 2-2 is probably a fair score, and you could say.
So to talk about your goal, like you said, you guys didn't come out the way you wanted to, but you started off on the perfect note with your goal. It's your second goal of the tournament. How have you fared playing in this new national tournament and playing against teams that you're not usually familiar with and traveling to different environments as well?
Yeah, no, I mean, it's been great. I mean, I think most clubs, most players that have played in the NPL, the last couple of years or so, you've heard these rumors of this national second talk trying to get underway. And once we found out, I think it was maybe the start of this last year or something, that it was actually going to happen, it's fantastic for the players. It's another thing that, we can strive to. And it's been good. It's been great. It's been nice to, an away game is always going to be an away game. You're not playing at your home ground, but to know that, for some of them you're actually flying to, it just has that little bit extra to it.
Yeah.
So it's been nice in that sense to actually feel like a proper away game. But it's been good. And no, my two goals that I've scored this tournament so far, I mean, they've been good goals. First one didn't really have to do much, kind of got set up for me, but you've got to take those ones as a forward.
Yeah.
But the one against Heidelberg was just, we had a game plan, basically just to try to lock them into one section and force them to play that middle pass. And I think it was in the first 2 minutes or something.
Yeah.
That exact scenario happened, and it was just lucky that ricochet kind of bounced out to me, and I was in a good spot for it. And I just took my touch and just shot for the goal. So I had a look where the keeper was, and I shot for the goal and it went in.
Yeah. And it definitely gave you the right start and the point you needed to come into this weekend. Now, we've talked about teams that are new to you, but this weekend it's kind of ironic that it comes against a team that you're so familiar with in New South Wales. You play Marconi in your final group stage game, and it's a matter of survival for you guys in the championship. You did lose to Marconi early in the championship, 3-0 loss at the Palace, but you were down to 10 men for the whole of the second half. Though early in the NPL season, you guys did defeat Marconi 3-0 at the Palace. So you both have had your fair shares of blowing at each other. How do you go into this weekend against a familiar opponent at home and not only win, but come away with a very big win in what you need?
Look, it's going to be tough. You can't sit here and say it's not going to be, because it is. We have to score 6 goals without conceding one. So, that's football. That's the position we're in throughout the first 5 games. But look, our games against Marconi, no matter what, they've always been good. Like you mentioned, the first game in the NPL, we went up to the Palace, we beat them 3-0, and we were in cruise control that whole game, basically. The second game down at Wynn Stadium, it was a 1-1 draw or was it a 0-0 draw? I think it was 1-1 draw.
Yeah.
Yeah, and again, that was a great game. I think that game was more fair. Marconi definitely put up a better fight in that game. So it was very, very even. And then the first round against them in the tournament, look, we went down to 10 men, I think, in the 22nd minute or something like that.
Yeah.
Pretty sure we were already 1-0 down at that point too, so we didn't have a great start. And obviously going down to 10 men, playing the rest of the game, trying to fight back, wasn't the easiest task. So, they did get the win over us. Wasn't the fairest of battles due to the situation we were in, but apart from that, they got the win. So it'll be a good game.
So you talked about your Heidelberg game and where you had a strategy. You went into that game wanting to force Heidelberg to play a particular way. Is that the same message going into this weekend? Is it wanting Marconi to play a certain way, or is it focusing more on you guys playing your way of football?
I would say more so focusing on us, because at the end of the day, even though, there's a job to do, and our job is to score 6 goals and, again, hopefully not concede one, because once we concede one, then we have to score 7. Yeah. So the task is very big. It's not impossible to do. Anything can happen in football, but it is very hard. So we'll see what happens. But the focus is on us. We have nothing to lose.
Yeah.
So if Marconi come into the game, a bit casual, and let's say we scored 2 or 3 goals by halftime, which that is the goal, then the pressure's on them.
Yeah.
So for us, it's just go in, playing our way, put up the best fight we can. Again, not an impossible task, but very difficult. And we'll see what happens. But yeah, we're just focusing on us and just see if we can score as many goals as we can.
To kind of talk about that needing to score goals and your attacking players, I did some research for this interview, and you've mentioned the 6 goals. Last time Wollongong scored 6 goals was July of 2023 when you guys beat Sydney FC Youth 6-2 in a game you actually scored against. You scored, I think, the third.
Was that at Wynn Stadium?
I think so, yeah. Yeah. So last time you scored 6 goals, you got to do it again this weekend. How will yourselves and your other teammates and attacking plays, defensive plays, all work together to have your best attacking foot forward on Saturday?
Well, I'd like to say we're a very attacking side. So even if we haven't scored, numerous amounts of goals, our play style is as soon as we were to win the ball, just, make sure that first pass, if possible, is to go forward. So we just need our defense to continue doing what they're doing, do the best for us, but then us as the attackers need to do our best and just play our attacking style of football. And, like I said, we're looking to go in at halftime without one, conceding a goal, but two, hopefully having 2 or 3. So again, it's going to be a tough one. Like you mentioned in the Sydney FC game, we won 6-2, but we conceded 2 goals. And so that can't happen because then we have to score 8.
Yeah.
But we just got to put our best foot forward. And I think as well, because the pressure is mostly on Marconi for this game, I think if we put too much pressure on ourselves, it'll cause us to maybe do things we shouldn't be doing. So for me, I just look at it as, you know what, there's no pressure. Sure, we've got a goal to do and you want to be serious and you want to try to tackle that goal. But at the end of the day, I think the best way to go about this weekend is to have as much fun as possible. Yeah. So just go out there, play our attacking style of football, have fun, hopefully get the goals we need to, and then whatever happens at the end of the day happens. So.
Final question for you, and it's more on Wollongong as a whole. You guys have seen a lot of changes coming into this championship. You have a new manager, new high caliber signings, and a new home ground that you've been playing at over the last 2 games. How have these changes been for you? You've been at the club for 2-3 years now, I think it was.
This will be next year will be 4, so 3.
Yeah. So you've been at the club for 3 years. You've obviously come to know what Wollongong is about, the community, the fans, the club as an identity. How have these changes been for you? And is it the step in the right direction to get Wolves back on, a national stage and recapturing national glory of the past?
That's a good question. If I forget anything, I might need you to say it.
You're good. I know. Yeah, I know I ramble.
Look, I've lived in Wollongong my whole life. So I was also a Wolves junior. Mm-hmm. I played there 12s, 13s, 14s, 15s until I eventually left and I went to Sydney FC for a spell. But once I've come back, nothing has changed. It's still the club I remember. They always try to put the players' interest first. They always try to look after us in any sort of way. And I don't think that the changes have really affected us too much as a squad. We have had some new signings just for the championship. Whether they sign on or not for next year, I'm unaware, but we've had some new signings. So I feel like we've only gotten better as the tournament has gone on. Unfortunately, we've put ourselves in this position where, there's a tough task to try handle, but I think we've got better as the tournament's gone on. So if we were to progress or, we were already progressing, you would only see us get better and better again. With Luke coming in, the coach, he was the last coach that won a title. He won 2 titles in 2019 with the Wolves, so he knows what he's doing. And like I said, we've only just gotten better. So we started as a fairly new squad because we did have a lot of new players come in for the championship. Once you kind of start getting used to one another, figuring out how we all play, you start to then feel like the ball's moving. So we've gotten better as time has gone on. And the stadium we're playing at now, it's nice. It's small, it's nice, but it gives that really good atmosphere that maybe you won't see at Win Stadium just because of how much bigger the stadium is. If it was my decision, it's always to play at Win Stadium. Yeah. But for the tournament, the club has moved us to the Collegians ground, which again is still perfect. And even that first game against, it was Heidelberg, the first home game we had, you could just feel the energy straight away. So the changes have been good. It's just been unfortunate that, we've put ourselves in this position where we've got to climb this mountain now. And, hopefully we can reach the top. But again, if not, it is what it is. That's football. We just got to go out there, have fun, put our best foot forward, and we'll see what happens. So...
Yeah, and I'm coming down to Wollongong on Saturday to experience Collegians because I've been to Win Stadium, seen you guys play there. And like you said, the atmosphere has been really good at Collegians. You see it on the TV. It's very obvious to see that the Wollongong faithful are embracing this new change and embracing you guys back on the national scale. And I'm sure it'll be a really big crowd. there on Saturday for this in-state rivalry.
Yeah. We're looking forward to it. I mean, hopefully we can get as many fans as we can down there. I think the good thing is that we're a small little region, so most football fans or whatever, they typically support the Wolves, and I think it's up to us as players to obviously give them the results, because when we give them the results, they come out in numbers. So, it's up to us to try our best. And even if we don't go through, as long as we, put our best foot forward, I'm sure they'll appreciate it. And going into next NPL season, no matter where we're playing, whether it's at Collegians, back at Wynn Stadium, they always come out in numbers. So it's up to us to give them something to cheer for, to enjoy. And yeah, we'll see what happens. It's a tough ask, like I've said many times, but we'll see.
Well, Alex, thank you very much for joining us on this week's episode. We wish you all the best of luck for this week's game against Marconi. And as we've talked about in football, you can never really say never until that final whistle goes. So thank you very much for joining us.
Exactly right. No, thank you. It's been a pleasure. Thank you very much.
It's now time for our round 5 review, starting off with that Friday night game. As I said, that Sydney derby between Sydney United 58 and West Apia. It was a 2-1 win for West Apia, though it was United's best performance of the championship so far. Apia went 1-0 up through Sayed Kambiashi, but United immediately responded just a few minutes later through Michael Krishlovic. It did have that real derby feel to it, and that rivalry in the game. Players were very tense. They were having a lot of scraps, a lot of mingling ons, and a lot of nasty tackles as well in this one. United knew they needed a win to keep their tournament alive, and Apia knew they could improve their chances also with the win, and that's exactly what they did. In the final moments of the first half, Brendan Kelly once again scores for West Apia. He really disrupted Vedan Janjetovic in the box for Sydney United off that corner. Some would say it was a foul, some would say it's fair game, it's a fair contest, jump for the ball. Referee saw it as that. I thought it was pretty fair as well, but sometimes it's just when your luck is in, your luck is in. And for West Apia, it is. And for Sydney United, as we've seen in the Australia Championship, it hasn't been. It's his 3rd goal in 5 games for the centre-back, and he's arguably one of the most dominating figures in the championship. Second half, there wasn't too much to talk about in regards to chances. Apia never really looked like they were going to kill the game off, and United had a few chances at the end, but faltered to nothing eventually. United will end their disappointing Australia Championship campaign in Adelaide this coming weekend against Metro Stars, just a 1 point from that opening game and no wins since. Apia haven't booked their spot for the quarterfinals just yet, as Metro did beat Bayswater last weekend, but they do take top spot in Group D for now, and if they avoid a defeat, they could potentially avoid Heidelberg as well in that first weekend of finals football. It's a really big game at Leichhardt Oval. We'll talk about that in the second half of the episode. But for now, we can hear the thoughts of the winning coach, Franco Prizzi from West Apia. We caught up with him after the game to talk about his side's 2-1 win on Friday night. Franco, very good win for you guys. You're back on the winning record. How are you guys feeling after that result?
Yeah, look, it's one of those cliches. We came for 3 points and we got up. It was very difficult. It's a difficult field to play on, but also Sydney United are very organised. Some super young players coming through, and Ante always as a team organised. So we went 2-1. They could have scored a few from a set piece, so it was a very tight game. But like I said at the start, we came for 3 points. That's what we got, and we're really happy with that.
Over the last 2 weeks, you've struggled to get results. You get back on winning ways. What difference did you see from your sides in the last 2 weeks to now tonight to get the 3 points?
Look, I think even next week will be a similar story where our opponents are really understanding the ability of our players. So it's going to be tough to score against teams that are setting up a deep block. They're definitely playing to win. They're definitely playing to attack in their own right. So not at all we're not playing against the team, but they're quite defensive. So it's hard to find space when you've got 8-9 players in and around the defensive box and a goalkeeper. So that's probably the only difference, where I think early on in the competition, everyone was a bit more free-flowing and going out to play. Since the Bayswater game, then followed by Metro Stars last week. We had 30 shots last week. I don't know what we're at tonight, but there would have been 5 or 6 clear-cut chances in the first half where the keepers made a good save. We've hit the crossbar twice. So there's good moments. So I don't know that we're doing anything wrong, but just how football is when a team defends deep. It's you need a bit of luck. And, Drayden Kelly got the second goal purely from, contesting for the ball fairly. Thankfully, the referee saw it that way because that's what it was. And then he's followed up. So actually our winning goal is a bit more of a desperation. So if anything's changed, maybe a bit of desperation in the box, similar to our equaliser last week.
Speaking of Drayden Kelly, he's been immense for you at the back. He's now 3 goals in 5 games now for the Australia Championship. Just how impactful is he for your side going forward?
Yeah, no, he's a leader on the field. He looks after himself and he's forming a great partnership with Michael Kuda. We've got Patrick Flotman in the side who would start in any other side, and just credit to Drayden and Michael. They're doing really well. Sean on our left, he's flying, and Cameron on the right. So our back line, they're working well together, and that's a big part of what we're expecting moving forward.
And finally, you're on the cusp of qualifying for the quarterfinals if results go your way over this weekend. Does that play a factor into next week, or is it no matter the result between Bayswater and Metro, it's same as usual? We head into that Bayswater game looking for 3 points, trying to get that top spot out of the group.
Yeah, look, we want to get top spot. We want to win every game we play. We want to get clean sheet every game we play. So that doesn't change. Friendly game, Australian Championship, a dead rubber, doesn't really matter what we're playing. So that should be the aim. And in a very respectful way, we've been looking forward to play Bayswater again.
Yeah. Kicking off Super Saturday was the Sydney Olympic and Moreton City Excelsior game. We've already talked about how great that game was. I said it's the game of the round. And Gloria Manda and Ali Alwal got Olympic off to the perfect start and gave them the hope that they could climb out of Group A with 2 early goals there. Joe Scott, who we interviewed last week, and we asked him why he only scores bangers, scored another one just before halftime, giving Moreton City Excelsior the spark they needed, because up until then, it was Olympic whitewash. They were all over Excelsior, and Excelsior looked like they weren't up to races. They were hit quick by Olympic and looked like they were going to falter to nothing, but Scott gave them the spark they needed just before the halftime break. Adam Parkhouse did come off the bench, though, and give Olympic a 3-1 lead just after the hour mark, and what should have been all 3 points. You thought that Olympic had done the job, 3 points, they were moving on. I was trying to do the calculations in my head of, tied on points, tied on goal difference. I think they were tied on the same amount of goals scored, so I was trying to look what would be the next tiebreaker if it came to that. But it also never felt fully done. Like maybe around the 75th minute mark, right before they got the handball and the penalty, it felt like Moreton City were growing back into that game, and they did just that. They got a penalty in the 82nd minute that brought back within 1, and then in the 96th minute, in the last minute of the game, the whole 90th minute stoppage time was all Excelsior. They had a goal ruled out for offside, chance after chance. They were banging on the door. And finally, the door came down when Luka Jankovic rescued a last-minute point for the away team. As I said in my recap on Saturday at the ground, it's not so much that Moreton picked up a point, it's more that they took 2 points away from Olympic. Olympic still trailing Moreton City by 3 points going into the final round, and their fate isn't in their hands, and that's probably the biggest disappointment for Laban Haliti and Olympic there. Once again, Olympic throw away points from winning positions in back-to-back weeks. They did against South Melbourne the week prior, did it to Moreton again today. So that's 5 points there that realistically should have been theirs, and they should be already looking like they're getting out of this group with an easy result against Broadmeadow this weekend. We did, though, catch up with both head coaches after this dramatic finish at Jubilee Stadium. We'll start with Cameron Miller of Moreton City Excelsior, and then we'll cross over to our interview with head coach of Sydney Olympic, Laban Haliti there. Cameron, you rescue a point there. How topsy-turvy was that game and coming away with a point?
Yeah, it was a game that didn't have a lot of control from both teams. It stopped a lot of ball in the air, a lot of second phase moments, and yeah, it went back and forth in terms of the result. Obviously, considering the context of the game, really happy to get away with a point. Tricky place to come here, so yeah, really happy.
Like you said, it's not so much of a point gain, but 2 points taken off Olympic, who are still chasing you, still 3 points behind you going into that final game. Just how crunch time now is it in that round 6, but you still have that breathing room over teams chasing you.
It obviously makes it far better for us being 3 ahead now, not level going in, because we play South Melbourne next week, right, which is going to be very difficult. So, that helps us. It goes down to the last round of the group stage, which, to be honest, coming into the competition, I thought it would, because it's 4 teams here who can all qualify. So I think it's exciting for the competition. It's exciting for our group. It wasn't our plan today to take 1 point at the start of the day, but like I said, context of the game, as the game went on, we'll take it and we'll move on.
So I was talking to Joe a bit earlier. You have a quick turnaround now. You're straight to the airport. Do you keep one eye on that South Melbourne Broadmeadow Magic game that's kicked off, looking at, if you could get more of an advantage off that one?
We'll definitely be watching it when we can. I think we might miss the first half, but probably more so to have a look at South Melbourne. Again, another chance to watch them a bit closer. The result will be what it is. We'll worry about that next week. But we'll keep eyes on it.
And just off topic, quickly ahead, what does preparations look like going to this weekend? What things do you guys have to work on based off this result, but then also your previous meeting against South?
I think firstly we need to get home and get recovered. Obviously 5 games in now, so the bodies are getting sore, plus the travel adds to that. Secondly, in terms of tactically, it's the same stuff, open space moments, the transitions, turnovers. It's stuff that's hurting us every week at the moment that needs to be fixed. We conceded another goal today from an attacking corner at one end. And so we need to address that, obviously. And thirdly, I think the mentality, because we shut late in the game and we run over the top of them. We need to start like that, not on the back foot. So I think we can fix those things. We've definitely got it, I think, moving forward until next week.
Labanol, you earn a point here, but unfortunately on the balance, there's some games you draw, you feel like you won, feel like you lost today, feels like a loss. What's your assessment on that game?
I think you sort of covered one sentence there, but it's an interesting story. Like, the moment change where Seth got injured and had to take him off of the bounce of the team, and then you have a moment with a penalty. It's just like, the players have been unbelievable again today in these conditions. It's only again for both teams, but it's very hard to put forward, and I feel for the players. Because, again, we were leading all game. Last week we were leading all game. In Melbourne we were leading. So you can see that there is a spirit there, but just at the moment, it's like every time there's 30 seconds to go, seems the ball to be in our box.
Like you said, a lot of these games you've been playing in the Australian Championship have been these close one goal either side of it, and your side just unfortunately been on the wrong side too many times. Is it, like you said, just a matter of moments, or is there something in those dying moments? South Melbourne last week, now Moreton City this week. Is there something you've seen, or is it just a matter of luck?
No. If I use the luck part, people think it's an excuse. It's a moment. But again, it's a moment. For example, today we lose Tank from yellow cards. For next week, we use Ali. So everywhere around the world, or any part of the world, you lose your most consistent players, let's say, that they've shown this year in the championship. It's going to hurt you. And it's just seems to be their way in a sense of, like Tank gets a yellow card, Ali gets a yellow card, and they get suspended for next week. I don't know if anyone's had it, and it's not an excuse. I stand in front of it, I aim at in front of it, no problem. I take responsibility, no problem. But I think if you dig deeper and you summarize, you go, oh, you actually, scratch your head.
And just quickly on players missing out, I know Ziggy Gordon was out of action today. What was that?
Well, this is the other message that you look at it. So that's one of our leaders, and he's out. And you look at our back line today, Jack, 22, 21, Josh, Tank, Zach, Sammy. These are all 21, 22-year-olds, Tank, like I said. So, you rely on them, and they stood up and they showed that we believe in them. And then that's the other thing, you lose one of the most experienced players, but then we carry on, we go, punch on it. It's amazing, and again, I don't want this to be used as an excuse, but it is a fact, what Ziggy against South Melbourne was outstanding.
Yes.
Then we lose it for today.
Is it just a one-game thing, or it's an assessment?
But at the moment, we're just going through that, so we'll see this week. Yeah. Then you get Ali, who has lied in the championship, who is a player that he is. I worked with him before, so I sort of knew what to expect. And then Tang, and then Seth, who was having a good game. He has to come off because of a groin. So that's just the way it is.
Yeah. Now, you've mentioned all the players that are going to be missing next week. You've had a grueling NPL season already, a grueling championship as well. You have one final game to save your season, to continue your season to the quarterfinals. I know that dressing room isn't lively at the moment. How do you lift those players and get them up ready for that away trip to Broadmeadow?
I think what we play, because it's never done until actually it's done. So we come on Monday morning and do what we need to do and prepare for Broadmeadow. And again, it's a game that we need to focus on taking, but I think we'll let this sink in and then start to switch our attention to that. Football is a funny game sometimes, and we'll see. You don't want it to be like this, of course, and you want it to be in your hands, but at the moment it's like that. Let's see how it's played.
After that wild 3-3 draw, we continued Super Saturday in a rainy and cold Melbourne day, where South Melbourne secured their 5th win in a row, beating Broadmeadow Magic 2-0 to lock up their home quarterfinal next weekend. The goals came through Manny Agwek and Jordan Lampard, both on the score sheet once again, either side of half-time, and it was enough for them to pick up the 3 points. South Melbourne now go up to Moreton City on the final match day with nothing to play for except a perfect group stage run. They're 5 wins from 5s. They're already in the quarterfinals, already home quarterfinals, so they'll have the ability to rest a lot of players and rotate that squad, which they were already doing against Broadmeadow on Saturday. Broadmeadow, they will end their campaign in the group stages after Saturday's result. They will head home for their final game of the championship, where they could really play spoils if Olympic are still in the fight to get out of Group A. Sunday, 1 p.m. saw a return to Darcy Street down in Tasmania, where Marconi have 1 foot in the quarterfinals after beating South Hobart 2-0. Team of the week centre-back Milanaric scored his first goal of the campaign, firing home a low-driven shot from the edge of the 18-yard box. And 18 minutes from time, Matic Busic doubled the Stallions' lead, finishing off a move that saw Marko Jesic pick up his 5th assist of the tournament, the most by any player so far. Marconi are now sitting good going into the final round of the group stages, 3 points ahead of Wollongong, and we've already talked about the uphill climb for Wollongong with Alex a bit earlier there. South Hobart remain at home for the final game, where if they pick up their first points of the Australia Championship against undefeated Heidelberg, they can really cause some major upsets as to who plays where in next weekend's quarterfinals. Preston Lions and Canberra Croatia were also playing at the 1 o'clock time slot, and it was the goalkeepers who were the star of the show in this 0-0 draw at Genestil Stadium. Ryan Scott of Preston and Team of the Week player Sebastian Ahrens of Canberra Croatia pulled off great saves to keep the scores deadlocked. Both sides will now go into the final day with everything to play for. A win for either side could spell the difference between playing in the quarterfinals and going home. We'll talk more about what it would mean for Canberra to advance to the quarterfinals with Daniel in just a little bit. Metro Stars and Bayswater, they played at the 4:30 time slot, and Metro, already playing finals football, stayed alive for another week with a 2-0 win against the then unbeaten Bayswater City. Both of Metro's goal scorers earned themselves a spot in this week's Team of the Week with 2 high-quality individual goals. Jackson Walls opened the scoring before Christian Satira slammed the door shut on Basie and locked up a huge 3 points. Metro are already playing do-or-die football. They completed the first challenge against Bayswater, and now for a shot to possibly play either Marconi or Heidelberg next weekend in the quarterfinals, they will need to beat Sydney United this weekend and hope either Apia and Bayswater, who play each other, will need to drop points on Sunday. For Bayswater, it does leave them with a simple equation, though, for this coming weekend. Pick up a single point, 1 point, and they are into the final 8. Lose, and it could spell the end of what has been a fairy tale run for the club from Western Australia. The final game we have to review of round 5 comes between the New South Wales Premiers and the Victorian Premiers, where the Victorian Premiers came away with all 3 points in a low-scoring and cagey affair at Avenger Park. Avondale required the help of their A-League caliber striker Bruno Fornaroli to not only secure their place in the quarterfinals, but also a date at home in the last 8. Avondale are now 5 points clear of second, meaning just like South, they are able to rest players and rotate that squad in the final round. For Spirit, they are in the cluster mess that is Group C, sitting outside of the top 2. They head to Canberra, where both sides are competing for all 3 points on that Sunday. That is, though, if Preston fails to win at Avengers Park on Saturday. So, a lot of scenarios that could happen in Group C. On the other side of this interview with Canberra Croatia's Daniel Colbertaldo, we will get into all those scenarios, what could happen, and where those games could be played. So enjoy that interview. Time joining us from Canberra Croatia, a new club joining us on this week's episode. We are joined by attacking midfielder Daniel Colbertaldo. Daniel, thank you for joining us, and how are you doing today?
No, not a problem. Thank you for having us on the show. And doing well down here in Canberra. Just finished for the day and looking forward to seeing what's ahead.
Nice. So to kind of start off with your Canberra Croatia career, you've been at Canberra for the last 6 years now. After joining from Canberra Olympic, you've experienced a lot of highs during that time at Canberra Croatia. Premiership winners, championship winners, and State Cup glory as well. How does Canberra Croatia continue to assert itself and its dominance in ACT year after year?
Look, we've got a club, obviously has a good few young boys as well, which is always a good building foundation. No one's getting younger, and we're not professional. We all work full-time jobs. So to be able to pull from both, a good few young boys that are coming up through the ranks, but then also being able to hold on to a squad that hasn't fared too badly in, the Canberra competition. And I guess a lot of that goes down to obviously both the coach and coaches who year in, year out put together a team and, the foundations of how they might want to play and in order to try and get the best results possible, right?
Yeah.
And the same goes for the club. Year in, year out, players leave, players come, but every year we seem to have found something that has worked and tweaked where needed to be able to remain competitive. And the last 6 years have been good. We've managed to win a fair few things along the way. So I think everybody's pretty happy about that.
Yeah. To kind of talk more now about the Australia Championship run you've been on, you've picked up all 4 of your points throughout the championship against Foundation Club Preston, including a 0-0 draw down at Gensteel Stadium last weekend, which was a hard-fought draw, I saw from all accounts. How much does that speak to the level that you guys play at and the ambitions you have as a club, as individual players, to strive and do well on this national stage?
Yeah, of course. Well, we knew coming from the Canberra competition that it was obviously we would have to step up, we'd have to perform. The game's faster. Melbourne and Sydney particularly have obviously bigger pools of players to pick from and largely more money, I'm sure, as well. Which obviously goes a long way in comparison to building a competitive team. For the club, I know the club's got a rich history of being a part of the old NSL back in the day. So from their perspective, it's always something they've wanted to be a part of. And they have this, I guess they've always maintained this mentality of, going out there and winning. Like, almost being a part of it is, look, it's all well and good, but ultimately we're there to try and do a job and to try and get our best results. And I think we brought in a few players for this tournament, and by doing so helped obviously bolster the squad a little bit. But largely we set out at the start of the year with the goal to be in the Australian Championship. So we knew we knew what we were working towards, basically, and what was somewhat required of us. We've had a few boys that have obviously played interstate as well, and every year we play teams from interstate with even our game against Metro Stars in the FFA Cup, which was, a bit of a preview into what was going to be required of us if we wanted to be able to compete.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And speaking of which, I saw you guys play in Avondale in the opening game, that opening weekend down at Avengers Park. And I was very impressed by the quality. Like you said, I'm from Sydney. You don't get to experience many teams out of your state during the NPL season. So to get yourself on the national stage, it was good to see you guys. And I'm sure myself and a lot of others were surprised by just how much commitment and fight you gave to Avondale. Didn't get the result on the day, but you guys did fight all the way throughout that 90 minutes. And now going to this final weekend, you've given yourself the best opportunity you have to get out of Group C, which is a very tight group. Are you, between that opening game and to now, are you guys surprised about the position you have put yourselves in, or is it a matter of you guys have always known this and you're just selling into your group and you've worked towards the point you have?
Look, I think from the outside, I think pretty much everyone around the country is probably a little bit surprised that we've been able to hold our own. I know there was a lot of talk about us potentially struggling. We have been drawn a tough group. We have 3 very good teams in our group, in both obviously the Sydney and Melbourne Premiers, and Preston finishing 4th or 5th as they did, but with a strong team themselves. From within, obviously, as I mentioned, we knew it was going to be tough, but I guess, we all have full faith in each other. We know what we're capable of. And I guess warming into the tournament was important for us. We played Avondale first game, and we didn't really know what was going to come our way. They're a strong team. Yeah. Yes, we struggled at times, but hey, they're good. And then hats off to them. They're a good team. But I do feel like, a few lapses in concentration probably, cost us the game that day. And the longer we can stay in games, the better the chance we have of trying to get a result. And I guess we've proven that over the last few weeks that, we managed to beat Preston at home, and then we travelled to Sydney and were unlucky not to at least get a point there. The majority of us kind of felt. So, no, it was just about settling in and being able to work on fundamentals that we know, we're relatively strong at, and trying to play to our strengths as opposed to potentially trying to do things that, maybe we're not there for.
Yeah.
But no, it's been good. No real surprises from within the camp.
Yeah.
Coming from outside, maybe a different story. But we're excited. The boys are excited. And like you said, we've given ourselves somewhat the best chance possible. Obviously, relying on Avondale a little bit to hopefully do us a favour.
Yeah.
But with a bit of luck, that they'll pull through for us as well. And then at least that gives us the chance to hold the result, in our own hands and see what we can do with it.
Yeah, exactly. And that leads perfectly on to my next question of, you have to rely on Avondale to defeat Preston on Saturday before your game on Sunday. Is there planned for you as a squad, small groups of the players to watch that game together and see what that result holds? Or is it just kind of focus on the job on Sunday?
Oh, look, I have no doubt that people will probably get together. And even if we don't get together, I have no doubt that everybody's eyes will be very much on the Avondale game. But in saying that, we're going about our week to week as if we have any other week. Like, it's all well and good to obviously hope Avondale can get the result, but providing they do, we still need to be ready on Sunday.
Yeah.
So we're going about our business as per usual. We're preparing for Sunday. We know we're in for another tough game, but we are at home. So hopefully by being at home, we can get, the crowd behind us. And I don't know, playing at home is always nice. It's Croatian club. The Croatian people are passionate, and this is what they've wanted, and it's obviously what we've wanted. So, hopefully we can give it one big push this weekend, and with a bit of luck, things might just align.
Yeah, and you're leading the questions. It's perfectly tying into the questions, because I was just about to talk about your home game. So Sunday, we moved to Sunday, say Preston have failed to lose. It comes down to a do-or-die game against Spirit. You win, you're in.
That's right.
You lost the Spirit 2-1 away last time. You said could have been a draw. You guys felt it should have been a draw. But like you said, you head back home in front of your home fans. You've only lost, from my maths, 8 times at home all season between the NPL and the Australia Championship. How much extra motivation does that give you as a squad, knowing Spirit has to come to Canberra, has to play on your field, in your conditions, and in front of, like you said, where it's going to be a boisterous crowd there?
Yeah, of course. Obviously, that is the ideal situation for us, especially given the match that it is. Of course, it gives us more confidence. You got to be confident to a degree regardless, right? Obviously, within the group, we're not foolish. We're not naive. We know that every game is hard, but we do back ourselves in, and we are confident that we can get a result regardless of who we're playing. And obviously, being at home, we managed to beat Preston at home in a hard-fought 3-2 win there. And we tried our chances out up in Sydney. And as I mentioned, a lot of us thought that we probably could have come away with a point. So that was on a synthetic pitch as well. So hopefully, obviously now we're back on grass, something we're a little more familiar with, and maybe for them a little less familiar with. Hopefully, with a bit of luck, all these things kind of stack up in our favour. And again, with the big crowd, we saw even in Melbourne, there was a few people out there supporting us. So hats off to the Croatian supporters around the country in general, but especially for those from Canberra that have even travelled to support. And hopefully those from Sydney will get back down. The boys from Sydney have followed us around a little bit as well. And loving the atmosphere and the energy that they can bring to the game, and the players, especially in the latter stages, whether you be pushing or holding on, it all helps. That's for sure.
That's been, like you said, the one nice thing I've seen, especially with following Canberra Croatia throughout the tournament. Like you said, you had many fans down at Avenger Park that opening weekend, whether they're Melbourne Knights fan, Canberra Croatia fans, but still that Croatian community. You guys were at the Sydney United game, I think, a few weeks back when you guys were playing Spirit. So it's been really nice to see the camaraderie and that family and culture shine throughout the championship in your journey there.
Yeah, 100%. Like I said, it's a club still largely run and by Croatians. And there is that heritage within the club. I myself aren't Croatian, but they've taken me on board as if I were. Yeah. So very, very happy to be where I am. And like I said, I've been there 6 years, so I guess that it speaks volumes in itself. But the club is passionate that this is where the club wants to be, and the club's worked hard to be here. Just as much as the players have been, so have the fans. They've been there week in, week out. So it's definitely something that as players we hope to obviously give back. Yeah. They come out week in, week out, and they support us. Especially in this tournament, as you mentioned, we had people from Melbourne at our games in Melbourne. We had even people from Canberra and Sydney at our games in Melbourne, and likewise when we've played here and in Sydney, we've had people come and support us from afar. Yeah. And it's great. Like, as I mentioned, I'm not Croatian, but it's great to see, being someone who is not Croatian, seeing these people come week in, week out to support the Croatian club and to support their own heritage is unbelievable. It's great to see. It's great to see. It really is.
Yeah. One of the great things about the Australia Championship, the stories and the culture that's going to shine on the national stage. Final question. We're halfway through the week. It's Wednesday. Still plenty of time between now and Sunday, and a lot can change. But how has preparations been, and what is the message coming from Dean Jurgenich and the coaches heading into Sunday's do or die match?
Yeah, look, we had a session last night, a light session, albeit seeing we played in Melbourne and we travelled and we got back, later and then straight back into work. Unfortunately, that's the grind for the majority of us. We don't really get the days off after the games and whatnot. So light session last night, but the boys and the coaching staff were relatively happy with the result on the weekend, and obviously it keeps us alive, which is the most important thing. Yeah. But going forward, we've got another few sessions prior to the game on Sunday, and I think it's just trying to get, everybody in the right mindset, trying to get bodies ready to go, and just keep working on, as I mentioned before, the things that we feel can benefit us. It's all well and good to look at other teams and the way they play and, strengths and weaknesses, which we definitely do. Don't get me wrong. Dean's very good at that, and he sits us down every week and we do analyze our opponent. But at the same time, we're also very focused on doing what we know works for us. Everyone's excited. Yeah, everyone's excited. There's not really too much more. There's not really much more to it, in all honesty. It's almost a do or die game, providing the Avondale result goes our way. So if you can't get ready for a game of this after 11 months of working towards this, then maybe not the right place. But the boys are ready. We're ready. We're ready to go. We're ready to give it a crack. And like I said, with a bit of luck, we'll progress.
Well, Daniel, thank you very much for joining us on this week's episode. We wish you all the best for this weekend. We hope the stars align for your team's favour, and we hope that you guys can make it through to the quarterfinal after a big win after Spirit on Sunday.
Perfect. Thank you very much for having us, and fingers crossed. We'll see how we go.
Win and you're in. That is what I said at the top of the episode, and that is what will be the scenario for many teams coming into this round 6 as we look towards that, as we preview the final group stage round of the Australia Championship. Before we get into every individual game, we'll go through the group standings, the current quarterfinal matchups, and that breaking news I was hinting at the top of the episode about where the quarterfinals matchups could be. So, in terms of group standings, South Melbourne have already secured that they will finish first in Group A. with 15 points, 5 wins from 5. Moreton City Excelsior, they're still 3 points clear of Sydney Olympic in second on 7 points. Olympic still trailing on 4. And Broadmeadow Magic are out of the scenario for quarterfinals football with just 3 points there in last place. Group B, still a 3-horse race, though 2 horses are very much pulling away. Heidelberg sitting first on 11 points. Marconi has closed that gap with Heidelberg to just 1 point now, as they sit on 10 points in second. Wollongong Wolves in with a sniff of quarterfinal actions, but will need all 3 points and many, many goals to get up into those top 2 spots. Group C, and this one is still wide open between all 3 teams chasing down the Victorian premiers in Avondale on 11 points in first. Preston Lions currently hold second spot on 6 points, though have to travel to Avondale on Saturday. NWS Spirit, they're in third on 5 points, and Canberra Croatia on 4, so still very much in it for both Spirit and Croatia with just a win required. Group D is also still at large. West Apia and Bayswater are tied on 10 points each. Apia sitting ahead of Bayswater with a goal difference better by 4. Metro Stars are kept alive with their win last weekend. They're on 7 points in third, playing last place Sydney United on 1 point, hoping that they can do the job there and hopefully West Apia or Bayswater drops points. So what does that mean for the quarterfinal matchups going into this weekend? So South Melbourne and Avondale are already locked into their side of the draw. They're on opposite sides of the draw. South Melbourne's current quarterfinal projection, who they will face at Lakeside Stadium, would be Preston Lions in the Big Show Part 3, so that hasn't changed since last week. Looking still on that side of the draw, it would be a non-foundation club quarterfinal between Heidelberg United and Bayswater City if those 2 teams hold their current positions. Avondale, they're at home on the other side of the draw. They'll face the Queensland Premiers in Moreton City Excelsior if they're able to hold on to second spot in Group A. And the final matchup, which saw movement from last week, it would mean that West Apia would host the Marconi Stallions in a Derby d'Italia for the ages in the quarterfinals next weekend if results currently stay as they are. Huge implications on who will be playing in these quarterfinals. And to get to that news that I was talking about, it doesn't so much apply now compared to last week. Because if you remember me saying last week that there was no quarterfinal games in Sydney because you had South Melbourne first, Heidelberg first, Avondale first, and Bayswater was first at the time. And I was like, well, if there's 3 games down in Victoria, I'd travel down there to go watch, with the other one being in West Australia. Now, I learnt this news on Friday at the Apia game, and I have since then had it confirmed by someone at the Australia Championship. So, for the quarterfinal matchups, it doesn't apply for semifinals or finals, but for the quarterfinal matchups, the home team isn't so much determined based on where they finish in the ladder. It is determined by if there is a foundation club involved in that quarterfinal. So what that means is if you look back to last week, where it's Heidelberg versus West Apia and Bayswater versus Marconi, it wouldn't be a scenario where you have 3 Victorian quarterfinals and 1 West Australia. It would actually mean Apia, who even though would finish second, and Heidelberg first, Apia, because they're the foundation club, would actually get that home game in the quarterfinals, and the Burgers would have to come up to New South Wales. It would also mean that Marconi finishing second, Bayswater first. Bayswater wouldn't actually welcome Marconi to West Australia Frank Drago Reserve. They would have to travel out east to play Marconi at the Palace. And when I heard this at the time, it was groundbreaking to me. It blew my mind because I was like, that changes everything, especially if you're Heidelberg or Bayswater. Now, for South Melbourne and Avondale, they already secured their home spots, first place in the group, so it doesn't really affect them as much. It more applies to the 2 quarterfinals that the locations are still at large. So if you're a Heidelberg fan and you thought you'd get to play Apia at home, if it held up, then that wouldn't be the case. Now, currently, none of this quarterfinal regarding foundation clubs would matter because West Apia are playing Marconi, West Apia would play the home game anyway. And because Heidelberg and Bayswater are two non-foundation clubs, it would go then to the highest seeded non-foundation club, and Heidelberg would actually get to host Bayswater City in that quarterfinal. But I just thought I'd share this news because at the time it was very, not controversial, but I think it was news that needed to be shared because no one I heard had been talking about it. Like the guy I was talking to at the Apia game that he heard it from, even he was surprised. So it's just kind of worked its way through to now I'm sharing this news with you guys, and it just makes sure it ensures you guys are aware of what is at play for this weekend, and doesn't surprise you when they announce this next weekend with the quarterfinal fixtures and everything. My thoughts on it is that it doesn't follow the traditional sporting merit that the World Cup, that the Champions League has been following for years and years and years. Usually, the home team is the team that finished first and the away teams finished second. If you follow football, you know that's the case. Though I can see the argument of where the foundation clubs do get this kind of extra special privilege. Now, the Australia Championship person I talked to, they said it was written in the competition laws, or regulations, I should say, that this would be the case come the quarterfinals. And I get why, because the 8 teams that were a part of the foundation of the NST, they weren't buying into quarterfinals and semifinals and group stage and knockout stages. They were buying in for the home and away league standings. And when you invest the money, when you're looking at a home and away season, and then it changes on you to this Champions League format, there would have to be some kind of compensation as for that. Now, I'm sure there's going to be people that are going to be upset with that if that does come to fruition, if these quarterfinal matchups do change based on standings and stuff like that. But I think when you're the pioneers of something and other people come in based off their own sporting merit, yes, but come in and not reap the rewards of your hard work, but join the project late, where they've been writing this for the last 18 months or so, and some of these clubs have only been involved in it the last 3 months. There does need to be some kind of, not reward, but benefit for believing in this project for so long. So that would be the case if a foundation club and a non-foundation club is paired up in the quarterfinals and the foundation club is actually the lower seed. They would host the higher seed non-foundation club. It's not the case currently in the quarterfinals projections at the moment, but I just thought I'd share that news with you guys so that you are aware and up to date with what I know. Saying that, we move to our round 6 preview, where we start with Friday night action up at Perry Park between Moreton City Excelsior and South Melbourne. And Moreton City Excelsior can lock up one of the 5 remaining spots in the quarterfinals to kick off the 6th round of the championship. After rescuing a point last week against Olympic, Excelsior need only a draw against the Perfect Hellers to get into the last 8. Last time they faced, it was a 2-0 win for South Melbourne down at Lakeside. I'm expecting a very different lineup from South. As I already said, South have secured a home quarterfinal, so that opportunity to rest players and keep players from getting suspensions is very high for them. So they'd be wanting to rest players and keep that squad fresh for what is shaping up to be a big show part 3 in the quarterfinals, and then 3 more games to the final. That's what their eyes would be on. So I'm expecting them to really rest some players and some key players to avoid fatigue and burnout over the course of what has been a long NPL season, but then also a now long Australia Championship run. I do believe Moreton, after what I saw last week against Olympic, will be the second team coming out of Group A. The fight, the desire, the quality they have in this team, I think, is enough to pull something off against South. But there's also the very high chance that they don't come away with anything, and it causes a very nervy watch on Sunday for the boys in Queensland as they watch that Sydney Olympic Broadmeadow game. But to summary, point for Moreton City Excelsior. They're into the last 8. South Melbourne, nothing to play for and just seeing out the last game of the group stages there. Super Saturday kicks off with a Melbourne derby between Avondale FC and Preston Lions at Avenger Park. So much more than 3 points on the line in this one. Preston has failed to beat Avondale in all 3 of their previous meetings this season, but if the Lions want to join the Avengers in the quarterfinals, they would need to do just that. If Preston draw, then they'll be hoping for Spirit and Canberra to do the same on Sunday, and fail to win, and Preston will lose the fate out of their own hands, and they'll have to wait till 6 o'clock on Sunday to see if they will play one more game in the Australia Championship. Avondale, like I was just saying for South Melbourne, already secured a home quarterfinal last round of the group stages. They don't want suspensions, they don't want injuries, so I imagine they'll be resting a lot of players, getting plays set, refocusing them for the quarterfinal next week. But I think with so much tension in this one, it can go so many ways to kick off Super Saturday and what will be a dramatic finish in Group C. Continue on with Super Saturday, we have another in-state derby between Marconi and Wollongong. Very historic derby between these two clubs, always fiery, and both teams are still in the play for the quarterfinals, but Marconi are definitely breathing the easier of the two sides. We already mentioned in our interview with Alex that they were beaten 3-0 by Marconi in round 3, and if Marconi want to progress to the last 8, they will only need a point to secure that spot. Wollongong gave themselves a sliver of hope with their 2-2 draw against Heidelberg last weekend. It's an uphill climb for the team from the South Coast, who does need all 3 points, but also 6 goals in order to keep their Australia Championship alive. Against the best defense in the league, the Wolves' attack will have to be at its all-time best to take down the 4-time champions of Australia. The first game on the Sunday is Broadmeadow Magic versus Sydney Olympic at Magic Park, and this game has the potential to mean everything or mean nothing. If Moreton City, like I said earlier, pick up a point on Friday, then this game will be a dead rubber between Magic and Olympic. If South beat Excelsior on Friday, then this game will have so much meaning for Olympic, who will still have the slightest of pulses left in the championship. Currently 3 points behind the Queensland Premiers, Olympic would need to beat Broadmeadow Magic, unlike what they did in round 2 when Magic came to Jubilee Stadium, and ensure that their goal difference is better than Moreton City ends with on the Friday night. So I expect Olympic, if they have any hope to get out of the group, they will give everything they got. The goal difference isn't as crazy as what Wollongong is facing with Marconi. If, say, Excelsior loses 2-0 to South, then I think Olympic would only need to win 2 or 3-0 in order to get out of the group. So not undoable for Olympic if given the chance to get out of the group, but when you throw away that many points, like myself and Haliti said in that short little interview we did with him, then fate isn't in your control, and you just got to kind of wait and see what you are dealt with on the final round. This is where, though, I want to raise this point, is that the games not being played concurrently, it does kind of, as a football purist, you want your final group stages games to be played at the same time so that there's no kind of issues or results, but you also get that live table up and down kind of thing with the fixtures. This isn't happening in the Australia Championship, so one part of me is disappointed that's not played at the same time, but also when there's still so many storylines to be played and you can see whether it's a dead rubber or win and in kind of situation, then, kind of go put that aside and hope that the storylines play out for themselves and gives us the entertainment that we all strive for when we watch football. Also at 1 o'clock, we have South Hobart and Heidelberg. Heidelberg travelling down to Tasmania as South Hobart will finish their Australia Championship campaign at home. Already in the quarterfinals, but unlike their Victorian counterparts, they haven't secured or given themselves the best chance to host the quarterfinal. Like I said, the quarterfinals are based on what foundation teams are involved against the non-foundation clubs. So Heidelberg be hoping that Bayswater ends up finishing second to host a quarterfinal, but if that's not the case, then they will have to go away. Though, if they don't win against South Hobart and Marconi does win, then they'll be travelling away anyway in that first week of finals. They did embarrass South Hobart last time they played 6-1 in round 3. They're only a point ahead of Marconi in that race for top spot in Group B, but you fancy the Burgers to get the job done in this one. I also imagine that they won't rest the entire squad like Avondale and South Melbourne will, but after a long marathon of a season, including Australia Championship, Oz Cup, MPL Final Series, I have to imagine they would be wanting to rest some of their key players going into those quarterfinals. And I definitely see that they will lock up top spot. They could already have locked up top spot by the time the whistle blows on Sunday if Marconi failed to win against Wollongong. So if they've already locked up top spot, then it could be a completely different 11. For Heidelberg, for South Hobart, they'll be looking to end on a high note and get some sort of point to give to those fans that turn up in really good numbers down there at Darcy Street. Metro Stars and Sydney United play at 1 o'clock at TK Shuttle Reserve, 12:30 local time in Adelaide, and it's a huge first game in what could be a chaotic finish to Group D. Sydney United are already out of the championship, but could play spoils to Metro's quarterfinals hopes. Metro need to win at home and do the double over Sydney United to continue their push for a late final spot. If Metro win, they will climb above Bayswater into the top 2 in the interim, and they will have to wait the result between West Apia and Bayswater City later in the day. Draw or lose, and Group D will have its 2 representatives into the quarterfinal, and West Apia and Bayswater will play out just for those final positions, either first or second. Expect a lot of desperation and attacking power from Metro. They showed a little bit against Bayswater, but didn't have to push all the way. But if this game is close and they've got a sniff to take all 3 points, expect Danny Greystone and those Metro boys to give everything they have into this one. United, we don't really know what to expect from them. We expect they're always going to turn up and play really good football. Expect to play for pride. They haven't hit the heights in this championship like they would have hoped for. So they're obviously looking at that. You don't know whether it's going to be a rested team, a different look team, whether Ante Juric experiments in this last game of the season, or he just sends out his players to have a bit of fun in Adelaide. But United obviously can play spoils. They can help out West Apia with picking up results there. But expect Metro to give a real fight here as they're in with a very good chance to get out of Group D. Speaking of teams that have a very good chance to get out of the group that are not currently sitting in the top 2, it's Canberra Croatia versus NWS Spirit. Now we already talked to Daniel about what it would mean for Canberra to get out of the group here, and for Spirit they'll also be fighting like hell if they are given a shot. Already mentioned, if Preston draw or lose, it's a simple equation: win and you're in for both Canberra and Spirit. Last time they faced, Spirit did defeat Canberra Croatia 2-1, setting up a huge second meeting between the New South Wales and the ACT Premiers. This game could be one of the most frantic games of the round and a great way to end the group stages here. In the nation's capital, Canberra Croatia fans will always turn out in good numbers. Spirit, I'm sure their fans will make the trip across to the nation's capital, only a 3.5-hour drive, I think it is. So it should be a really great game there. I'm really hoping that there is something to play for. If Preston wins against Avondale on Saturday, then it's fair play to Preston. They've taken care of business, start off slow, and work their way back to secure that second spot. And this game kind of becomes null and void. If Preston are unable to do what they have done all seasons against Avondale and win, then it is game on in this Group C decider between Canberra Croatia and NWS Spirit. The final game of the group stages that we will review is West Apia and Bayswater City, 4:30 at Leichhardt Oval, and it's first, second in Group D currently. Now, like I said, if Metro win at the 1 o'clock time slot, then Bayswater could drop down into that third place spot. Then they are fighting to push up into that top spot. Like I said, this game could mean everything or it could be nothing. West Apia did pick up a 2-1 result over Sydney United last week, so they have now climbed back up into top spot. And if Metro win, both these teams will be fighting for their lives, because if Bayswater score, then Apia's out. If Apia win, then Bayswater out. It's just a whole drama-filled game that this one could potentially be. If Metro don't win and it's a draw or a loss for the boys from Adelaide, then it's just a matter of West Apia and Bayswater playing it out for either first or second in that group. But still, I saw a quote from the Bayswater captain earlier this week. Their one goal when they come east to Sydney is to pick up maximum points. So they're not looking for a draw. A draw would mean both sides make into the final 8, regardless of what Metro do. But neither side will lay down and be happy with a point. They will want to secure top spot and give themselves a real fight to fight for national glory. Bayswater scrapped a 1-0 win against Apia out in Perth in the first meeting, and now the return fixture could spell the end for one team if Metro win, or the continued quest for national glory for both sides if they're able to get results here in Leichhardt Oval. So that's your round 6 preview of all those games, all those very important and very tight group stages games. Let me know who you think are going to win these games, who's going to make it into the quarterfinals. There's not many spots left to be secured, and there's so many teams still at large, still fighting for those spots. We'll do our power rankings this week. So not much movement in this week 6 power ranking. South Melbourne still leading the pack, obviously 5 wins from 5. Heidelberg sitting in 2nd. Avondale, though, do climb up into 3rd after securing their spot in the quarterfinal and picking up all 3 points against NWS Spirit. Bayswater dropped down into 4th. Marconi remain at 5 ahead of their New South Wales Italian derby, West Apia. And in the final 2 spots, it's still Moreton City Excelsior and Preston Lions, though they do trade spots, as Moreton City Excelsior picked up a more impressive draw on the road compared to Preston's draw at home. The games I'll be at this weekend, if you're out and about on this final weekend of the group stages, I'll be down on the south coast between Wollongong and Marconi, expecting a huge turnout for this New South Wales derby. And then on the Sunday, I'll be at Leichhardt Oval for West Apia versus Bayswater, hoping this one has the fireworks and the drama to end what has been a fantastic group stage here in the inaugural Australia Championship. As always, if you've reached this point of the episode, I always encourage and implore you, if you do like this episode, please give it a 5-star review on Spotify. Follow the podcast. It means the world to me. Like I said, this is our 100 follower episode, so I'm very happy to reach that milestone, and we'll keep cracking on. We're not slowing down. We're only stepping and moving things forward. Like I said, huge episode here today, 2 special guest interviews, well over an hour, and that's just what we do here at Tier 2 Talk. Remember to follow on Instagram and Twitter as well for all daily content of the Australia Championship, especially as we get into these final series. You want to know who's playing where, who will be facing off against who, and all the news and all the drama that is coming from the Australia Championship, which is just filled with it. It's been fantastic to see how many storylines, drama, and the football has been oh so impressive from this. As always, we do our match day vlogs from the grounds. You get to hear my thoughts live at the ground. I have to wait till Wednesdays to hear my opinions. If you want to follow on Instagram and Twitter there, you get those live reactions from the grounds from myself. Like I said, make sure you enter our giveaway to get those 2 quarterfinal tickets. And the final message I will leave with you for this week is it's do or die time in the Australia Championship, and this is where football is at its best, when it's played the best, when fans get to enjoy the stories that come out of this. So make sure you're watching either at the ground or on SBS for all the action in what is sure to be a fantastic finish here by Sunday afternoon. Thank you all very much again for listening to this week's episode. Hope you enjoyed. Hope you are loving the content we're producing out. Thank you to all our guests that joined us in this week's episode. It means a lot to me to get all these different stories on the episode. Until next week, until we are into finals football, I've been Kane McKenna, and bye everybody.